But yeah, welcome everybody bleh, welcome everybody to today's workshop. Super excited. We have Sheree Zhang here. She's going to be talking about pre-labeling with prompts on Label Studio. So, it's a workflow that I think can really help save a lot of time and make your labeling efforts more efficient. So, she's a product manager here at Human Signal, and uh, basically, I will give you a couple of announcements and then I'll turn the time over to her. So the two things I just want to note before she kicks into things are first, this is being recorded, so we'll share a recording of the webinar um, here in like a day or two after we've had a chance to get it uploaded. And also, we will have some time for some Q&A at the end of this. So as Sherry's going along, don't hesitate to ask questions. You can ask in the chat, or there's a Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen where you can put your questions, and then we'll answer as many as possible. So if you're going along, anything that you'd like more clarification on, or you'd like to dive into, or issues that you've run into, um, Sherry's happy to answer those questions. So anyway, with that, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to Sherry and let her walk through the workshop. Thanks again, everybody, for joining.
Perfect. Thanks, Nate, for the intro. Welcome, everyone. Good to see y'all today on a nice Wednesday. I've dropped a link in the webinar chat for a sign up to Label Studio, the Label Studio environment for the workshop. So through this environment, you'll get some like pre-seeded projects, some free OpenAI credits. And as we walk through kind of the hands-on portion, you'll be able to interact with the same data and kind of do the same things that I'm doing. So that would be awesome. If you want to follow along, the link is in the webinar chat. That being said, hi everyone, my name is Sherry. I'm a product manager here at Human Signal. I work on some of our functionality that is powered by AI. For example, this prompts functionality that lets you pre-label your projects. Over the workshop today, we'll be going over a couple things, starting off with a quick intro into labeling with LLMs, and then we'll jump right into a kind of three-step part of the workshop, which starts off with setting up your prompts, secondly, pre-labeling your data with it, and then finally, improving the quality of those predictions you get from prompts with some human review. And then we'll wrap up with some use cases from our customers, some examples on what they're doing, and of course, try to save some time for a Q&A. But don't hesitate to use the chat to post any questions that you come up with as we go. Again, a free trial link is in the webinar chat. Alrighty, kicking it off with an intro to labeling with LLMs. If you're here, I'm sure you already know this, but labeling is time-consuming and expensive. It often requires a lot of subject matter expertise, a good amount of internal training to build that quality into your labels. And then if you want to scale your manual labeling even more, let's say more complex data or larger data sets, that can be sometimes impractical or costly. And then existing ways of building in automations to your labeling can be, difficult, technical, or require some significant initial investment. And maybe you've already even tried using LLMs to label your data. I know for a fact that I definitely have. And this is an example of something I tried to label with just our friendly ChatGPT. I had an image captioning use case where I had these different pictures and I wanted to generate a caption and a classification of what was in the image. You can imagine this kind of use case applying to, let's say, for example, adding some alt text in adding alt text for accessibility on a web platform, or you might have captions for product descriptions on your e-commerce website, or maybe you want to do other things like extract some information from an image. So those are all kind of use cases you could test out with ChatGPT, where you would give it like an instruction, the content or the data you want to label, and then it'll return a result, and that's the prediction for the label itself. You could use other models to do this as well, but oftentimes when we interact directly on these UIs, it can be kind of hard to copy and paste back the result into wherever we're labeling data, whether that's Label Studio or an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to post that trial link again in the webinar chat, just in case there's any folks who just joined and would like to sign up with that link there. And a lot of our users have also encountered some problems with labeling with LLMs. In practice, they've encountered issues with like the reliability of the outputs, since a lot of our LLMs, if we're interacting with them directly, can be very general or non-deterministic, and the outputs they get back can really vary. Sometimes you might get the exact format you'd like, sometimes there might be bullet points and a ramble. So that output format might not align with what we want to be using for our actual label. And then there's the scaling and versioning part. You saw one example where I posted an image and I sent in some content to ChatGPT and I got one output back. But what if I wanted to do this for, hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of tasks? That can get tricky to scale and version as I'm improving the prompt and trying to improve the labels. And then there's the domain expertise part where, your unique terminology might not be understood by a generic LLM. And finally, we see some challenges in building confidence in the quality from the outputs from our LLMs. Without a feedback loop, it's hard to gauge whether a prompt that you're iterating on will scale to new data and how it'll perform to anything that hasn't seen before. And essentially, that's really what we've built for. In the workshop, you'll see that we've built in a reliability layer that essentially makes sure that the outputs that the LLMs are providing are aligned with Label Studio's format, so you get the format that you're expecting. Secondly, we built in a seamless UI so that you could really easily build and evaluate these prompt versions, and then just click a button to automatically annotate the project with these pre-labels. This platform also, one thing that our users really love is that platform enables subject matter experts who might not already have experience with building with LLMs yet, to add their logic and expertise into the prompts themselves. So it's a very accessible platform for folks across their LLM building journey. And finally, really important part is the human in the loop workflow, where we want to make sure the feedback loop is enabled for our humans to provide their insight into and provide their reviews on these LLM predictions. And this helps build that, again, the confidence to scale. Without further ado, we did want to kick off the workshop part. But before I do that, a quick overview of those 3 steps again that I mentioned before. In the workshop, we're going over the setting up of prompts. So if you've signed in with that, the link I've sent, you'll see some pre-seeded projects and pre-seeded prompts already. You can navigate to prompts via the left-hand side. And step 2 will be pre-labeling your data. So we'll be creating a prompt together to interact with an LLM, to view the project tasks and view a side-by-side of the project task versus the LLM's predictions. And then step 3 that we'll go through is improving that quality. So we'll be able to compare our LLM predictions against ground truth data or some golden data set. And we'll also be able to iterate and improve on this golden data set if we want to test our LLM's predictions on other new task data. And with that, I'm going to share my other screen now, which y'all should see. And this is me signing up with the same link that you all should have. I signed up just a couple minutes before the start of this webinar. So hopefully you can all see this. In the chat, let us know if you're having any issues. I'm going to let Nate help out with some of any issues that come up. But hopefully you all can see this. This is the Label Studio interface. Once you first land into the app, you should see a couple of projects. And these are the sample projects within the environment that I sent. And there's 2 projects here. The first one here is on image captioning. So this is the one we're going to focus on for our tutorial today. We also have another one if you wanted to check it out. That one's more text-based and around product reviews and entity extraction, things like that. So for our first project here on image captioning, I just clicked into that project. We're going to get this fun, pop-up button that says, great news, you can auto-label this project using prompts. Cool. Now I know I could use this. We're going to actually skip that because we're going to do this a little bit more together in a flow. I wanted to intro this project a bit more. Essentially, what I'm doing here is I have a project of 200 tasks. Each task has one image each, and I would like to provide in a classification for this image and also a caption. Again, use cases might be things like generating alt text for a website or descriptions for e-commerce website, product descriptions. In this case, we've got pictures of different animals and we'd like to classify them and also provide a caption. And so in your project, you should also see about 20 tasks already pre-labeled for you. So we've set this up so you have, a couple labels to start us. We've got, like, let's say this image, we've got a cow, and we have a description that's already generated here. So there's only 20 tasks here with those labels already. Everything else should be empty. And I wanted to try and imagine like labeling this like hands-on. Like if I was an annotator and I was coming in and I was trying to annotate this, it would be, like this looks like a dog, a really cute dog. So it'd be like happy, dog on grass. And maybe I would want to add some more content like, the type of dog, the breed, the environment, things like that. If I wanted to do that for one task, it's pretty quick, maybe 2 minutes. But if I wanted to label the rest of my project with images or image classifications and captions, that's, like 180 times 2 minutes, like 6 hours worth of my time to manually go in and annotate every single one of these remaining images. And that's why we're here today. We're going to learn about pre-labeling and set up the rest of this project so we get pre-labels from LLMs so that we don't have to start from scratch anymore. And let me show you how to do that. In the left navigation, so you've got this hamburger menu here. You can click on it. The second tab is prompts. And that's what we're going to use to set up essentially a workflow that allows us to interact with LLMs and our project tasks. In this top right corner here where you see create prompt, that's where we're going to click on because I want to show you how to create that. And here we're going to talk, add a name for our prompt. It's image captioning and classification. You can add a description if you would like, and you could also here now select your target project. I've got the demo project that we were just looking at for image captioning, where I'll see the labeling template populate here, or like show up here. I can see that there's a caption and also a classification. That looks right to me, so I'm gonna create that prompt now. And I get this tutorial. So if this is your first time on prompts, you'll get this like kind of walkthrough that shows you all these different sections of the prompt interface, but I'm gonna talk through this anyway. What you'll see on the right side now is this list of the 20 sample tasks from the project that we were just looking at. So we had pictures of dogs, cats, other animals, and we're trying to get a classification for them as well as a caption. So on the left side here, this is where we interact with our model. So you'll see a base model selection, and you can pick amongst different whitelisted OpenAI models right now. So here I'm going to pick the GPT-4o Mini because that one tends to perform pretty well with our image use case, pretty fast, good results. So that's our base model that we're going to use, or at least I'm going to use. And then below that, you have this prompt body, which is where you type in any instruction you want to provide to your LLM to be able to label your task. So in this case, we've got, image classification captions. I'm going to tell the LLM exactly that. Like, hi, you're an annotator. You're an annotator. Please, provide labels for the below image. And then I'm going to also tell it what kind of, labels I would like. First, I would like a classification. and I'm going to provide a caption, or I would like the LLM to provide a caption. Um, this is an important part, and the important part is making sure that I include the variable. So the variable is the image data itself, and I need to make sure the LLM actually gets that information, or else it's not going to know what I'm trying to get it to label. So very, very, very basic prompt. But that's what we're going to start with. And I wanted to just show, even with a basic prompt, you can get some pre-labels that should be quite decent. So with our basic prompt, I'm going to save this, which will save the base model with the prompt. And against the sample of tasks, I'm going to run this inference job. And what's happening is I'm sending, or in the background, um, each image and task is being sent alongside the prompt to the LLM. So the LLM is now returning back kind of live its prediction on the image that we were just looking at, as well as a caption. And so then you could scroll here. That took a couple seconds, and I could see we got 20 out of 20 outputs back. Looks good. We spent about 6 cents. That's also pretty good. And I can see a caption for each of the images alongside a classification now. And this gives me like a quick view to scan each output side by side. And if I wanted to get like a closer view of, the task and the labels, I could click into any of these. Let's pick this one. And I jump right into a quick view of this prediction. So we've got a prediction of the caption plus the classification alongside our image that I can now, if I have other annotations on this task, I can compare side by side with my other annotations. So this was, the ground truth that we were looking at earlier. This is the new prediction we got back from the LLM. And then, hey, that looks okay. That looks pretty good. I can click on the next task or a previous one and see each of the predictions from the LLM in this kind of larger format. All right. And it's pretty easy to see an individual prediction by itself, but let's say now I wanted to be able to kind of bulk compare the ground truth set of data that we had, those 20 tasks that we already had annotations for and had ground truth for. Let's say I wanted to compare that against the LLM's predictions now. And I'm going to now show you how to do that. We're going to jump back into our prompt here, and I'm going to click on this dropdown. Previously, we were just interacting with our sample tasks. I can click on that and select another option here to do my inference run against. So if I wanted to get comparisons against ground truth, that's where I would select this ground truth option, and it would show an interface that displays side by side the golden star kind of ground truth data that we've marked in our project against what the LLM will predict as the classification caption. We'll also get like a final score that stacks the ground truth against our LLM's prediction. So we're going to click that, evaluate, and shortly we should get some predictions back alongside a final score on how well this LLM seemed to perform. I see a comment in the webinar chat just on, except for classification and captioning, what other variables can you create? Yeah, I can definitely touch on this a little bit more at the end. A lot of other variables. You could do entity extraction if you've got text. You could do other types of, captions. So essentially it's a free-form text area. So you could reuse that for other purposes as well. And I could jump into a couple more use cases at the end too. So we've got our results back now in this ground truth use case, and this is really helpful for providing that assessment of the LLM against our ground truth, a sort of evaluation for the prompt. So from our LLM, we've got dog, our ground truth was dog, but the caption from the LLM seemed to be a little bit short. It wasn't kind of up to our, human standards here. So maybe this is an opportunity for us to go back into our prompt and provide some more description on the type of caption we would like, or maybe we can provide some examples of the type of captions we would like to see. You could see which tasks here now the LLM doesn't do well in, and which ones the LLM does better in. And then jumping into any of these, let's say this one, I can now compare all of these predictions kind of side by side and get a better sense with my kind of human review what's going on with this prompt and how can I better improve it. So that's a good way for adding kind of that human review into this aspect. And kind of finally, the last step. Let's say I'm happy with this prompt. I know we're not that happy with it. We don't have a great score. There's definitely room for improvement. But hypothetically, let's say we're happy with it and we would like to use this prompt to not just generate pre-annotations for a sample of our project, but we'd like to use it across the entire project. That's where we select, again, our handy drop down up here, and we select all project tasks. Essentially, that switches the tasks that I am getting predictions on to the entire project. And when I run this time, I should get predictions across the entire project now. And so this means whenever I go back into this project next and I view each task, I should have these pre-labels, which are from this prompts run I'm doing right now, to help me get started with my review and labeling. Awesome. I've got 100 out of 200 tasks right now. And I'm going to let this run a little bit more. But while that's going, I did want to show you kind of the outputs coming in. So I'm going to just quickly refresh this. And if I'm in my labeling interface, I could see kind of this job happening in the background, so it doesn't affect my workflow as I'm, let's say, reviewing. So it seems like we've gotten 100 out of 200 predictions. Let's go to one where we don't have previous predictions on. Let's say that the cute dog that we were looking at before, or this puppy here. When I come in as Sheree, the annotator now, I can see that although I haven't seen this task before, it seems like I already have some pre-filled labels here for me. And those are actually powered by the predictions I'm generating from prompts. So in the back, I have image captioning and classification here. That's the prediction from the prompt. And when Sheree comes in, I get my annotation already kind of pre-filled. So I don't have to start from scratch and type out this whole caption and type out or provide a classification, but I could just kind of, be a reviewer reviewing the LLM's work. So in this case, it is a dog. It's a sleeping puppy with fluffy fur. Looks great. I'm going to submit it. So instead of spending that, 2 minutes typing all of this out, it could be a more complex task. All I have to do is spend, 10 seconds reviewing. And so it becomes a much faster way for our annotators to become reviewers and to spend more time kind of validating the outputs instead of typing things from scratch. So a lot faster. Instead of spending 6 hours, hopefully you'll be able to spend just maybe a couple minutes. If you wanted to, let's say, just bootstrap your project and generate labels really quickly, you could also click into your data manager here and then select all your projects. And if you're just bootstrapping your project, you don't need to review every task. You can actually create annotations from predictions, which means those predictions we just generated from image captioning classification prompt, we can just immediately bulk convert them into annotations. Hopefully that is helpful. I do see some really good questions in the chat, so I want to make sure I have enough time to get to those. Keep the questions rolling in. I'm going to jump back into the slides to wrap us up, and then I can come back and answer any of the questions. We had some questions in the chat about use cases from customers. or just use cases in general. What else can you do? Some other things that are common are, for example, like image serial number extraction. So, for example, if you had appliances and you wanted to detect within a label on the appliance what that serial number is, you could do that too. We have use cases around like email department classification, so routing to the correct department based off of a customer service email. Document topic detection, so where you have, like long text of articles and you'd like to detect any topics that might be relevant to you. Or chatbot conversation analysis, another common one for like sentiment, or PII detection and extraction. So maybe you want to highlight what's going on, where the PII is identified. And again, article summarization and those other tasks are all possible. This is not a fully comprehensive list, but we're very flexible in that case. So there's a lot of different use cases you could build. It all depends on how you've set up your project. That's how your prompts will predict. We've got some really great outcomes with some of our customers we're working with already, including faster time to insight, overall lower cost because they don't need to spend as much time labeling a project, and they can label now more projects. And also relatively good accuracy compared to manual labels. Again, there's that kind of human review part that lets you assess the output before you accept it. And then real quick, wanted to kind of put in a plug for upcoming workshops as well. We have a couple more the following 2 Wednesdays. Next one's on evaluating comparing the LLM. So again, we'll be using the prompts interface to assess the outputs from different LLMs. And then on the 26th, we have a webinar on generating synthetic data. Maybe you want to generate more Q&A pairs for your RAG pipeline, things like that. We'll be talking through how we did that here at Human Signal. Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you found this helpful, and I'm going to jump right into some of these questions that we've already got coming in. Perfect. Question from Alexi is, can I use the text intent recognition for any other tasks? Can we use your local LLM instead of API? If you wanted to use a different LLM, not like one from OpenAI, for example, how you do that is you click into prompts up here, and then you set up your API keys. So over here, we've already like pre-filled an OpenAI keys, so that's how you're getting kind of credits if you're following along. But if you would like to add your custom LLM and it has like an endpoint and it's OpenAI API compatible, then you could add endpoint API here, save it, connect to your own custom LLM. We also provide a number of other model providers too. Ramon, that's a really good question. I see a question on what if there's no ground truth captions and classifications? The main idea of pre-labeling is to label completely unlabeled raw data. That's an excellent point. And I'm going to use this other project, the product review ones, to just quickly show that. If I had this new kind of project where I don't have any labels yet, what you could do is use prompts to generate like a sample of 20 predictions and use those predictions to review them and generate like ground truth from that. So you can either, pre-label your whole project without ground truth. You might not have that score to compare and build that confidence in it, but you can generate the pre-labels with just your prompt, or you could generate pre-labels with just a sample of data. Go ahead and review those pre-labels, mark them as ground truth, and use them to further refine your prompt. So it kind of depends on what how much you want to build your confidence in the prompt that you're using, but you can, you don't have to use ground truth. We just used it to kind of assess our prompt. We have a question on how does it constrain itself to the provided labels? That's a really good question too. Within our prompts functionality in the backend, we're using constraint generation to make sure that the outputs for the LLM is informed of the expected outputs, and we're also enforcing the expected format based off of your labeling template. And the last question on how the confidence score is computed. We don't actually have a confidence score at the moment, but what we do have is, let me pull that up, is we do have the score for the ground truth versus the prediction, again, if you have ground truth. And this score is calculated based off of the annotator agreement score. So let's say you had two annotators and you wanted to compare the annotation agreement. We do the same thing with this LLM prediction against the golden, the ground truth label. So that's how the score is computed, and you can configure that within your project. So let's say your project is here, you can click into settings, click into quality, and your task agreement score here is the type of metric that will also be used to compare the prediction from the LLM and the ground truth, if you have ground truth. Awesome. That was a bit quick at the end from my side. I know we're 1 minute over. Anything else that you're seeing on your side, Nate? I can't hear you, by the way.
My bad. Yeah, it
Oh,
looks like
good.
there's a couple of more questions that have come in, and I saw a couple of hand raises in the chat. So if you have questions still, feel free to drop them in the chat. We can go a little bit over time and get those questions answered for you, if that's okay with you, Sheree.
Yeah, definitely. I'm free for the next little while. I'm gonna continue answering these questions as they come in, so feel free to stick around. Yeah,
All right, perfect. Yeah, so it looks like yeah, we've got one from Alexi, another one from Raman.
definitely.
I'll let you jump on those.
Yeah, so Alexia has a question of how to access this prompts interface. You're using the Label Studio UI. Um, this does depend on your Label Studio version. So currently prompts is accessible on Label Studio Enterprise SaaS or cloud. And also it's available on Label Studio Starter Cloud. So the link that I provided, and I will provide just here again in case anyone wants it. Oops, that is not correct. Um, is a link to our Starter Cloud trial. So you can get that via Starter Cloud or Label Studio Enterprise Cloud. Is there a way to, and the next question from Aman, is there a way to use prompts to draw bounding boxes on an image with a table containing numbers? That is a great question. If I'm interpreting correctly, this kind of sounds like some sort of like OCR type of use case. At the moment, prompts does not yet support this. We don't have the ability to draw the bounding boxes yet. But again, that being said, we're continuously adding improvements and support for new Label Studio use cases and labeling interfaces. So this sounds like a popular one and definitely something we may be looking into soon.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, yeah, I think that kind of knocks out a lot of the questions that we had come through, so we can go ahead and wrap this up. I just want to say a big thank you to everybody that showed up. I hope this was helpful for you. Again, the link to the free trial is in the chat, so if you're interested in trying this out for yourself and you haven't already signed up, please do. Again, a reminder, we did record this and we will be sending the recording out, and it will also be available on YouTube on our YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that. And a big thank you to Sheree for taking time to share her skills and expertise about this. Hope that it's super helpful for y'all.
Always a pleasure. Great to see everyone. Thanks for joining
Yep.
today.
Hope y'all have a great rest of your day.
And thanks, Nate. All right. Bye, everyone.